Okay, well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. If you're in Moscow, good morning if you're in the UK. Welcome to the latest in the Russo-British Chamber of Commerce webinar series. Today's topic for discussion is how has COVID-19 changed the employment market and what are the opportunities and threats? My name's Alf Torrance, I'm the Executive Director of the RBCC, and I'm delighted to welcome Martin Germerhausen, Managing Director of Antal Russia, to today's discussion. Thank you, of course, to all our RBCC members and friends who have also taken time out to participate. Before we get started, I just want to go through the normal ground rules to how the webinar will run. After I finish this quick introduction, Martin will make a short presentation lasting to up to 20 minutes. I'm sure many of you will want to put questions to Martin, so please use the hand up function on the Zoom app to let us know. However, the best way by far of getting your question heard is to use the chat function to send us your questions during the course of the webinar. The RBCC team will monitor the chat room and will try to pick out some of the more popular themes. Please keep your questions succinct, and it would be very helpful if you would type your name and company on your Zoom identification tag. If for whatever reason you can't do that, please include them with your question. We'll have everyone on mute, so please unmute yourself when speaking, and please remember to mute yourself again when you've finished. We'll also be recording this webinar for posterity, and we'll post it on the website shortly after we finish. We'll also post Michael's PowerPoint presentation, and should you want it, I'm sure Michael will be happy for us to send it out to you should you wish. Okay, that's the housekeeping out the way. Of course, Antal will be a very familiar name to many of you, if not all of you. It's a leading recruitment consultancy specializing in mid to senior managerial roles across an extensive range of professional disciplines and industry sectors. Founded in 1994, the Antal International Group has more than 140 offices worldwide. In Russia and the CIS, Antal has offices in Moscow, St. Pete, and Almaty. Michael joined Antal back in 2003 and became General Manager of Antal Russia in 2009, and under his management, it's become one of the leading recruitment companies in Russia and Kazakhstan. Michael, very warm welcome to you in this extremely stressful time for all businesses, really, both large and small. I'll be very interested to hear your insights because many companies are struggling with, for many of them are existential challenges. Of course, they want to know what they can do with their labor force. But of course, also, I suppose it's an opportunity in that, unfortunately for some, there'll be a lot of extremely talented people out there looking for new positions. Michael, over to you.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Al, for the introduction. Well, also thanks a lot for making this possible. We have quite a lot of people already online. Some people will still be joining. Unfortunately, it's not really possible to do a hands up who's working from home, but if I look at the pictures, at least it looks as if the majority of us are working from home and not from their offices anymore. I will try to share my screen, so just bear with me for 2 seconds. I hope this will soon be starting to work. Share here and F5. You see a PowerPoint screen now?
Yeah, perfectly, thanks. Great.
So yeah, I mean, you've already done the introduction and the marketing bit about Antal, so I can probably skip this slide. It's basically just summarizing what we do and why we think we have something to say. Since 1994, we've been here. I think our founder is actually also somewhere. I hope he'll also raise questions under the participants today, Tony Goodwin. And basically, I would like to start with remembering or reminding everybody that for Russia, this is probably, well, not the first crisis, and it won't be the last one. So for those of us who've been here for a long time, they've gone through a lot of these things. In business terms, if I remember 1998, 1999, which is probably the most severe one we had as a business. We went as a business from 100 people down to 5 people. In 2008, we had quite some difficulties as well. Business was reduced again 2014. And now again, there is some challenging times out there. But I would just like to add that the Russian population and the Russians as such, I think, are quite crisis proven. And I hope that for all of our businesses, they'll be weathering this crisis very well. To start off, home office is obviously now the big topic for everybody. Since the last 3 or 4 years, we've actually been trying during the summer always to let people have a day working from home or 2 days working from home, and actually prepare them already, not knowing that we one day would be forced to work from home. But people weren't really taking this up. And in the last 4 weeks, forced by some circumstances, unforeseen circumstances, the majority of us are now working from home. However, this is mainly to do with the office people. If you now go to the airport, if you go to the city center, if you go to the stores, if you go to the metro, you'll still see that a lot of people are actually working in their facilities, in their production facilities, in their stores. So it's not just home office, but the office people are obviously mainly now working from home. So as a recruitment company, we are obviously quite close to these people who are working from home now. And we're doing lots of interesting surveys and trying to figure out what is happening. If you're lucky and have the benefit of having an HR manager or an HR function in your business, you can see what they are currently covering and what they are currently dealing with. Basically, we have one part of the office which is sitting at home, and to take care of their safe and healthy. Well, that's usually the job of the wife or the husband and the children or the mother-in-law. In Russia, this is also quite popular. But we also shouldn't forget that we have people sitting still either in the office or the production facility or something similar. So for this, HR has to actually make sure that these people are, their temperature is measured, and that all the disinfection and health and safety rules are currently being done and passed as it should be done. Second, very, very important part after safety of the staff, I feel, or we feel, and our clients also feel, is internal communication. I think HR should be taking a leading role in this process in communicating all the changes that need to be happening. Controlling people at remote work is important, but for HR, the more important part is obviously the bureaucracy hasn't changed in Russia. So before you can actually have somebody working from home, you got to make sure that you sign all the necessary documents. If you didn't manage to do this on paper form, in the office still, you need to do it on a scanned version. But be assured that there is quite a bit of documentation that needs to be prepared for or by HR to be prepared for the future when you come out of this again, but also be prepared for the situation if this lasts longer and you, for example, need to performance manage your staff or need to let them go or need to do other changes to their work contracts. You got to be prepared that you have the right documents in place. Obviously, HR people are now also concerned and thinking together with their finance people and their general managers about what is happening to staff. Do we need to do cuts? The president in Russia or the government came up with a quite clever system. They've basically said we are all on holiday now. This is a new legal status. A lot of people still need to understand how this actually works. The lawyers need to understand, the tax people need to understand. We need to understand, well, even the tax office needs to understand. We got a call last week from the tax office, even though we are on holiday, saying, well, we would like to remind you that the fine that we send you, please send again, please pay next week. And we said, well, we are on holiday. Well, we can have a Zoom call. Well, we can't have a Zoom call because we're on holiday. So they are out there as well. And HR, as I said, takes here a leading role. If we look further, an interesting stat that we did, as you know, we are asking once per quarter our clients what are their plans for the year. And you can see here now the comparison plans at the beginning of the year, and then we again asked them at the end of March, when this all started, when people were moving to home offices, and people actually started to realize that Russia will be affected as well. And basically what you can see is that from a hiring point of view, a lot of companies that were planning to hire have put their hiring on hold. They are mainly, if they need to hire, replacing staff, or if they are in industries which are currently, I wouldn't say booming, but they have staff shortages because there's a demand change, they are obviously still hiring. So you can see quite a bit of changes here. In numbers, I hope everybody can see this. What I'm also monitoring is the biggest Russian job boards. You've heard of headhunter.ru and LinkedIn, obviously, LinkedIn being the most famous international one. And I'm always monitoring what is happening to various sectors and disciplines. And you can see here the biggest increase has been in the pharma industry. And we are also seeing this. Healthcare at the moment is, again, like in the last crisis in 2008 and 9, by the way, still seems to be the driving engine. It's not just doctors, but it's a lot of health-related staff which are currently working extra hours, and these companies are adding additional workforce. You can also see the other sectors and some of the disciplines. In general, we can see obviously an overall a drop in the number of vacancies, about 10 to 15%. That's the overall job boards. And if you talk to colleagues from the recruitment industry, including ourselves, most of us will probably be reporting that we in 25 to 50% drop in revenue in April and in May. So we are not as severely affected, like, for example, the hotel businesses or the airports, which basically are not flying anymore abroad. But again, it's severe cuts in activity in the business for all of us. If we then look at what companies are doing together with the HR managers and those steps which they have already taken, obviously officially the government with this holiday approach is trying to go a different way than they did in 2008, when a lot of companies just laid off thousands of people very quickly, more or less officially, and everybody knew about it and nobody did anything about it. Now, because everybody is locked down, can't sign document, more and more reminders that you're not allowed to lay off people. Companies are obviously going through different roads. You can see here corporate parties, team buildings, business travel, trainings, and those things which we can quite easily control and do less if they are not needed. If you can't travel, then obviously there's no cost related to business travel. And those companies that are providing business travel will also feel this. Then the next step, what a lot of companies has done, they've approached their landlords. So office people that are renting offices for some of the businesses might be up to 5, up to 10% of their total turnover. In retail as well, they've gone back to the landlords, and I think the majority of businesses have managed to get at least a postponement in payment, and at best a reduction in the rent payment for April. I think a lot of companies have done this as well, including ourselves. And then the next step, which is also relatively easily to be done on an HR point of view, is to work on the bonus and the commission sides. As you know, usually in April and in March, these are the months where companies are paying the bonuses related to last year. And doing cuts here, either delaying them or cutting them completely, is much easier and less legally risky than, for example, cutting somebody's salary, which is much more difficult to put into contract terms and to ensure that nobody takes you to court afterwards on this. So a lot of companies have gone through their bonus schemes, through their commission schemes, and have either cut or delayed or done things related to this. Another area which some companies have also approached, in particular in Moscow, is health insurance. This may sound strange in the times with the corona crisis, but as you know, the majority of hospitals that you have in your reach, in your medical insurance and the private medical insurance, are now very difficult to reach by your staff because they are sitting at home. The clinics are close to the office usually. So if you're talking now to your health provider, these guys will also usually be able to at least delay some of the payments, or may look at some changes within the contract, at least for the toughest months, which April and May, and with May we still have in front of us. And another area is sick pay. You also know, or you've heard that well, if people are now off sick during the time they're on holiday, they can claim sick pay. And as depending on how long they are in the business and what kind of salary they are in the business, this could actually be more beneficial to the business and to the employer to have the government pay the sick pay than actually take holidays instead of usually what people do in the past. They take holidays so they don't get reduced payment because of sickness. In some circumstances, it may make sense. You need to calculate this to actually claim the full sick pay. These are the areas which companies are currently working on. Plus, if we're talking on the sales side or on the business development side, they're obviously refocusing some of their staff to areas where there is now still a business. A couple of pictures and impressions on what's happening in Moscow for those who are not from Moscow today, but linking in from the UK or from other countries. As you know, we've introduced a Propust system, a QR code system, which you can relatively easily, I hope everybody is getting it easily. If not, let us know and we can show how this is done. So if you want to travel within the city, you're only allowed to do this twice a week, but you need to get a QR code before. So for example, if you want to get into the office, travel into the office and your office is closed, for example, if your server breaks down, or if something else, you need to get a stamp from the office because you need to sign a document, or you need to go to the banks are still open, then you need to order this kind of QR code before. If you want to go to hospital, you need to get the QR code before as well. If you just want to walk to the store next to your house, you don't need it. But this is how it's looking, and this is the first day when they introduced it. They started to check those person by person. Fairly quickly worked out that we are actually distributing more coronaviruses that way. So the checks have now been abolished, and they are much more on a case-by-case basis and just random checks now these days. From an HR point of view, also important to notice that all your staff aged 65 and older should be at home now, and shouldn't be in the office or at your factory, or if you're working, if you're allowed to work, work. And that also applies to people with chronic diseases. There's a list of diseases which the government has come up with. They're actually paying some kind of bonus. The Moscow government pays a bonus for those who stay at home, 65 plus, if they really stay at home. If they don't stay at home, they need to pay fines. What is important for HR is to take care that this actually happens, because if it doesn't happen, and if something happens to these people, it will be at the responsibility of the general manager and the health and safety responsible person So please control that those people are actually staying at home. For us, this has meant that some companies actually came back to us and said, look, our technical director, he is 65 plus, or somebody else with a chronic disease needs to stay at home now. We need to temporarily replace this person right now. Visas and everything around this, which is also work related. People are, from what I understand, are now not becoming criminals if their visas are running out and they are not leaving the country, because they physically can't leave the country. There's very, very few aircrafts still leaving Russia and picking up Russian people from the rest of the world. And sometimes you can still jump on those aircraft, but in general, until the mid of June, most of the foreigners are now fine with extending their visas and won't be fined. The same goes with registration. You know, that highly qualified staff in Russia, if they don't travel if they don't leave the country within 3 months, they also have to register themselves where they live. This is now also be delayed to the 15th of June. The cases that we have in Russia, the good news, at least in the press, if we can believe those figures, in the last 3-4 days, we've seen a kind of stabilizing of new cases, around 5,000 to 6,000. It's already been the same. It's not rising anymore. But if we compare to other countries which moved into this earlier, if we take, we are in constant contact with our colleagues in China, with our office in Italy. They are obviously further through the curve, and it's quite good. I always recommend get in touch with these guys as well to get some tricks and ideas on life hacks on how they've been going through the crisis and challenges. The situation in the region is a bit different. There's areas more affected and less affected. In many of the regions, companies are still working, businesses are still working, production facilities are still working. So if you don't know which clients to call, maybe you even want to call clients and business develop yourself in the regions. There seems to be happening a bit more now than in Moscow, which is on lockdown. Also, the government, the president has given more independence to the governors, so they can independently decide which measures to take. Federal laws which were introduced to help business on an HR point of view is a 50% reduction of payroll taxes. Unfortunately, 99% of international companies won't be able to claim those, because on a global scale, or even on a Russian scale, they wouldn't be considered as a small and medium-sized company. So unfortunately, after some kind of very positive news, we also went there and tried to get on the list. It is almost not possible to be allowed to get onto that list. The same goes for loans, which the government has offered to the most affected sectors and SMEs to pay salary. You can apply for an interest-free loan. But again, that's only for SMEs, and most of us as foreign-owned companies won't be able to get this benefit. The same as with the 12,000 rubles, which Putin has recently proposed to pay to the most affected businesses' staff. Again, so far not possible to apply to most of our businesses. There's increased pay for various parts of medical staff. Doctors are getting an additional pay. Nurses getting additional pay, which also explains again the health sector, which is currently working at its capacity, as probably also in other countries. No foreign travel, unfortunately, right now. And if the question comes up, when will we be actually traveling? I was just putting down the phone, taking a briefing call on a position we are getting from a European client, and I said, well, are you going to hire the person without personally seeing the person apart from a video interview? And they said, well, we need to see the person in person. And I said, well, I don't think this will happen before the end of July, August. If you look onto the Aeroflot website, for example, what flights you can book, it's probably not likely that we will be able to leave and come into the country before the end of July. So all the hiring needs to be done remotely until then. Final slide. I've talked quite a lot, so I hope there'll be lots of questions. How to survive the current hurricane. Just some life hacks that our clients have done. I feel that every business in those difficult times can reinvent themselves. As you know, some of our luxury clients have started to make masks, COVID-19 masks. Other companies have come up and I think Tesla is producing now artificial machines for breathing. And every business, I think, can find those areas where they can at least keep alive and generate some cash to be able to pay at least some of the salaries. So in our industry, what we've come up with is we are taking staff from the most effective industry, like hotels, like non-food stores, like airports, those people that can't work at the moment, and lending them out, giving them out, handing them out to those companies like delivery businesses, which are currently not having enough staff, not enough hands. If you're currently ordering online, you can wait up to 2 weeks to get delivery. So these companies are in big need, and putting those two together as recruiters, we get involved here. Also, your products, as I said, can apply it in a different way. For example, in our cases, this means that if you need to program something, if you need to prepare something, but the programming needs to be done for a German or UK system, you can still employ the programmer here in Russia and actually have the thing delivered in the UK or Germany or another country. And there's no problem in having those people outsourced, outstaffed through recruiting businesses like we do. And outplacement, I think everybody has heard this as well. A lot of companies are now thinking of laying off, or temporarily laying off, and they're getting back to companies like ours, helping, asking how to outplace those people. This morning, I was talking to our banking team, who have managed to set up interviews, even in those difficult times, with Sberbank, with VTB, with UniCredit, and with international banks for candidates that we are supposed to outplace. So there is still business happening. If we're looking in the medium term, don't forget about your business model. Don't forget about if it's the right business model, if it's strong, and if it's not now completely changing in the next 2 to 3 years, because we are now working remotely. Stick to it and use this time to prepare your business for the future. I think a lot of your staff will now be looking up to you and to all the actions you're taking. So don't panic. Be the leader. And as one of my European clients at the beginning of this week said, look, Michael, I don't have any positions for you right now, but out of my 50 sales managers, probably only 25 of them I will keep after the crisis, because the other 25, I can see they're playing video games, they are not taking this serious, they are not engaged at all. I'll probably will have to get rid of them, and once this is over, you'll have 25 sales manager jobs again. So what I would like to say is this is now a very good time to understand who are the people you want to be working with in future. And if you're an employee and you want to grow in your career, this is a great time now to be showing initiative and helping your company to go through those very, very difficult times. We as a company, as I said, we organized web calls with China, which has already been through it, and they're already going back to the office. They're already making invoices again. They're already putting on their productions. But we're also linking up with our Italian colleagues and friends, the UK, where at the moment, obviously, we are at the maximum of the problem. So it's very important not to lie to your staff.
James?
Hello. I
Hi,
can't
James.
hear
Has he dropped
Michael
off for you as
anymore.
well, has he?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't hear Michael anymore.
No, nor me. Okay. While we wait for Michael to come back online, please use the chat room for questions. We've got one at the moment. Obviously, Michael's given us a lot of detail there. I'm sure that's provoked more questions than just the one. If you're not using the chat room, once I've asked this question, we can always you can always ask direct. But for the moment, apologies for this slight technical hitch. Hopefully he'll come on quite soon. Michael, are you out there? Nothing yet, just technology always lets you down at some point. 1 second. Hello, Michael?
Yes.
Hi, Michael. You dropped off for not for long, probably about 30 seconds to a minute. Would you just mind, if you can remember what you were saying, just rewind the last minute, please.
Good. Yeah, I'm logging. I just rejoined from my telephone now.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Basically, I was just summing up, saying that in the short term, it's very tough now to take certain measures, but in the medium term, this is an ideal opportunity now for you as a leader and also for you as an employer to be showing initiative and helping your business to live through those difficult times. In Russia, we've been through many crises, so we are prepared. And don't give up in your Russian staff. They will be weathering this very effectively, usually.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. Is that it?
Yes.
Great.
Ready to take questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. A lot of detail there. I'm sure a lot of stuff. Oh, we got you back as well. That's great. We can see you. You've covered a lot of areas. If you don't mind, I'll just add from a personal perspective, I being one of those who are on a work visa or a business visa, in fact, the presidential decree of the 18th of April means that if you're legal on the 15th of March, you get the automatic extension to the 15th of June, and you don't actually have to do anything, which is good news. And also, interestingly, you mentioned Aeroflot. We've been in contact with them, and they're not planning on scheduling any regular flights before August. That's an interesting one, because obviously that's going to have quite a big effect. I think it's more about the actual technical difficulty of losing a schedule and then reinstating it. So I suspect there will be flights before that, but at the moment, that's what they're saying. So we'll just have to see how that one develops. Okay, our first question is from Leon Molchanovsky. He's from Galaxy Innovation. And his question is thus, he says, salaries went up considerably in the last couple of years. What would be the number in your estimate of top level jobs with salaries of 1 million rubles plus before COVID and after in Moscow as one case and in Russia more generally?
Wow.
I know.
Well, if I knew a lot of jobs that are now still paying 1 million rubles, which are vacant, let's get all our CVs and send those CVs on those jobs, because after all, that's still about 10,000, 12,000 pounds per month, minus 13%. At the moment, in general, I don't think that salaries have been cut by and large yet. What companies will have done, they will have looked at April and May in general, and have looked at the bonuses and commissions and things like that. And some severe cases may have also looked at the salaries, but not through the end of the year. I think they are navigating through this much more short term right now. What companies have also done is all these companies which are not paying 100% official salary, you know, where officially you're getting 50,000 rubles and the other 950,000 rubles you're getting on an offshore account or in an envelope. Those people are at big risk right now. Even those people who are on like 10,000 official ruble salary and 40,000 ruble in an envelope, a lot of these entrepreneurs are basically not handing out the envelopes anymore. And they are suffering quite a lot. Also, don't underestimate, quite a lot of execs have come up, not just in Russia, but globally also volunteering during the crisis to lower their pay by 20 to 40%. So again, this is a temporary measure. So depending on how long this works, obviously salaries will also start to drop, and there will be actually new people coming in with lower expectations of salary rather than the existing people salary being cut significantly. So there'll be additional competition driving this down.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Michael. Sorry, just Leon, would you like to come back to Michael on that?
Hello.
Hi, Leon.
Are you there? Yes. Thank you very much. Very good presentation, Michael. And there is enough data in your slides. The rationale for the question was indeed how much cut will be after COVID overall in the country, and therefore probably the top level jobs will be an indicator. If the top level executives they have cut, then that naturally everybody else below will also suffer. So overall, do you reckon after COVID there will be somewhat like 30% cuts in salaries or a different number?
No, I mean, my personal opinion, cuts will be short term. They will be for a certain amount during the big part of the crisis. And then afterwards, I would expect that actually people are being laid off rather than salaries being cut. So in the last big crisis that we had in 98 and 99 and in 2008, they didn't necessarily cut everybody's salaries, but they cut the workforce. So those people who are staying, they still need to make a living. They still need to be having you know, a comfort zone, and they need to be motivated to work. Also bear in mind that there's islands of areas, like I said, pharma, logistics, some of the programming in IT, which are still going to grow also in future. And companies will just bring their overall cost basis back to turnover. So they cannot afford to just work not on a profit, not to have cash. At the moment, most important is not even profit, but cash. So I don't think they'll be cutting long-term the salaries. They'll be cutting the people, rather.
Okay. And if you allow me, along the same lines, yesterday I heard some statistics in the UK from the government. They said before COVID, the unemployment rate was about 4%. Then currently it stands at about 10%. After COVID, an opinion is it will be about 7%.
How much do you say?
7.
7. Well, it all will depend on how much money they will actually be paying to unemployed people, because prior to COVID, the outpay for the unemployment benefit was you know, £10, £50, £100. Depending on what jobs you were having before, so you couldn't really live on this. If they and because of that, nobody actually officially registered for unemployment benefit. So the official figures you could never really trust anyway. If they now say, look, we are going to increase this, and I think there's talk about this, so you can actually at least buy food and medicine and everything on the amount which they're going to offer, then yes, officially more people will apply to it. And, you know, I could imagine 7-10% easily.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank you for your question. Next question is, I'm not quite sure who it's from, but it's a good question. How can we control remotely people's performance and results? And is there any software available on the market to help us do so?
Very good question. First of all, you need to understand that there is different types of people in each office. And those people that you couldn't control in the office because they were not motivated or they weren't doing what you wanted them to do, need to be controlled in a different manner at home than those people who were highly engaged, and for them it didn't really matter if they're working at home or not working at home. So I wouldn't approach everybody with micromanagement, calling them every day and checking, are you working, are you not working, and things like that. So first of all, make the cut or understand which people belong to which group, and then approach them differently. So those people in manual work that just need to get manual output out, you can obviously see in CRM systems what output they are doing, and you can control them via that. In more sophisticated work, you will obviously, like in the past, be looking at the result. And if there's no result, then unfortunately you will have to part with these people, or you will have to have a warning and a second warning and a third warning, and then get rid of those people. So that's quite important life hack. And the other thing also quite important is, which for me, having a wife, 3 children, a cat, a rat, and a lot of other things at the dacha. For me, that's not really an issue, but 40 or 50% of my staff, they are sitting at home alone in Moscow, in their flat. So they are going in the morning, they are going alone to work. I mean, from one room to the other, if they have the luxury of 2 rooms. And in the evening, they come again home and they are alone at home. So these people, you also need to find an approach to engage, I suppose, at least in those 2 months of lockdown where nobody is allowed to travel and come backwards and forwards. So we as a company, for example, in Moscow, we have started playing games in the evening, you know, to get a social element to it, you know, get a glass of wine on a Friday evening and play some of the popular Russian games, which people always were playing beforehand when they get together. So that works as well. And your CRM system, coming back to your original question, your CRM system, if you have an IT person, they will be able to show you how often these are accessed, and how many changes on the CRM system happened and what output happened there. So that's manageable and controllable. But maybe somebody from the audience can also add in, because I'm sure other people, I don't have the monopoly for ideas here.
No. Michael, but you haven't seen any innovative software coming on the market since the crisis, or even sort of workarounds that businesses have come up with?
No, I think this will still happen. I mean, Yandex, for example, have come up with a very interesting system where they are measuring, I don't know if data protection law that would be possible in the UK, but you know, they are coming out with this trend barometer every day, the level of self-containment, or how they call it. So they can basically measure how many people are actually staying at home. And so I'm pretty sure that they've also come up with other things where they are offering this thing to clients. So basically, clients, I can figure out where your staff actually are and what they are doing. So far, GDPR is not that 100% implemented in Russia, I get the impression here.
Yes, great. Okay, thank you. That's all the written questions we've had in. I throw the floor open to our listeners. If you'd like to ask Michael a question, or indeed anyone that you recognized in amongst the participants, please just unmute yourself and ask that question.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. I saw aerospace, I saw logistics on the list of people, I saw construction. So if some of the main sectors, people could just give a 2 or 3 minutes overview of what's happening for them, that'd be really good to know more.
Michael, this is Leon again. Just I'd like to comment about what you do with your staff when you play games in the evening. I just heard another life hack from another company in the US. They do on Friday evenings face mask webinars. You know, you kind of you take care of your skin and cosmetics, and imagine seeing everybody of your team in a Zoom in a face mask. That's hilarious.
A great idea, yeah. Good. Anyone out there with questions for Michael, or happy to give a quick overview of their particular industry? Let me have a look. Robert Willis, would you be happy to say a few words? I know you've seen the Chinese angle. I know you work in China as well. I think it'd be quite interesting for the audience to hear, you know, obviously China is slightly ahead of us, and just to pick your brains on the experience they've had and what we can expect in Russia.
Sure.
Thanks, Robert.
Obviously, I'm Robert Willis from Rodinia Analytics. 70–80% of our business for the last 10 years has actually been with China. And obviously, our current business with China is currently zero. Obviously, we suffered the downturn much sooner than everybody else, in the sense that we are looking to bring companies to the German stock market, amongst other things. That was postponed because basically the auditors couldn't get to the company, the accountants couldn't get to the company from either Hong Kong or from Germany. So everything got delayed and delayed. We're originally looking to bring a company in March to the market. Obviously that got delayed. Eventually a company got the staff back to work, because obviously that was all shut down, prolonged for the new year. Basically they had 80–90% of the workforce back at work, but many of their customers who would normally order products were not back at work either. So everything's got delayed and delayed. So current expectations are we could bring this company to market in September, but I think that all their figures are going to be completely shot to pieces, and I don't think any investors are going to be interested in the company. This loss initially a couple months, more like a loss of a year. Other people were involved basically on hold at the moment, so it's different. It's difficult. But as I say, I think it's more a question of looking to next year rather than actually looking for this year. So not too optimistic, unfortunately.
Thanks, Robert. Michael, would you like to comment on that? Or
yeah, we had the same from our Chinese office, that they are now gradually coming back. Unfortunately, if I remember correctly, not all of them came back. I think they had to lay off like 20 or 30% of their staff because there's less volume happening. But yes, they are back, and our clients as well. They started production facilities are starting again. I heard that the Chinese also don't have any option, because they now also have quite big high unemployment, people not working. So they need to be put back into work. Good.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. I noticed in the audience we have Sergey Averin. He is the UK's representative of the RBCC, i.e. the parastatal Chamber of Commerce, which have, I believe, around 82, represent 82 regional chambers throughout Russia. He's in very close contact with Mr. Sergey Katerin, who's obviously president of that organization, who advises Putin directly. So an influential body, you're all aware of it. I'll ask Sergey just to say a few words, because I know he had a conference yesterday, and it'd be just very interesting to hear what the RBCC is doing to support business, mainly small and medium businesses, because obviously they're most at risk. Sergey, are you there? I think he is. Sergey? Yep. Okay. He's trying to speak. Hello. He obviously can hear us. Let's have a look. Unmute. He's muted. Okay, we'll wait for him to join back in. Anyone else would like to ask a question? Nick Grills, I know you represent JCB, obviously. Oh, who have we got? Is that Sergey? No. Nick, would you mind saying a few words? Obviously, you represent the manufacturing side of life, being in charge of JCB in Russia. Very interested to hear your impressions.
Yeah, thank you, Alf, and thank you to Michael. It's very interesting to see his views and get a view on what other businesses are doing. For us at the moment, interestingly, our demand both on construction and agriculture, retail activity, I guess primarily, hasn't dipped that much in Russia. March was strong and April was relatively strong. Agriculture particularly because the commodity prices are good at the moment. I guess our biggest challenge, as far as the JCB Russia office personnel, everybody is working from home at the moment and appears to be quite successful. Our biggest challenge going forward will be if the demand does subside, which it could do, and that might be demand, or it might be the fact that our ability to supply that demand, because clearly JCB's factories at the moment aren't producing machines both in the UK and India, then our distribution network will be forced to align its cost base, which means people, service support, customer support, technically on machines. And if that does happen, if and when the market does pick back up, it's their ability to respond to that, particularly from a technical point of view, skilled people who support machines, because that is not something you can turn on relatively quickly. But at the moment, certainly from March and April performance, the demand from the customers, as in purchasing machines, has not dropped off like it has in other European countries. So we're just watching that very, very closely, and to see if it does actually, we see a more significant impact in May.
Great, thank you, Nick. Michael, would you like to comment on that, or anything to add?
No, very, very interesting. Let's try to get one or two more interesting insights into the market.
Yeah, okay, let's try Sergey again. I've talked to him on the phone. He's having problems with his mic, but we'll give it one more go. Sergey? No, sorry, you're saying he can't. Okay, let's...
We have had several requests in the construction side on obviously hospital construction all over the country. These hospitals which are going to be built within 2, 3, 4 weeks, and bringing in construction staff into those locations. Some of them are quite exotic locations. Won't be that easy.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, we've got a no from Sergey. Something technical hitch. Would anyone else like to comment from their perspective? I see Emily from Hudson Sandler here, which is a financial PR company. Are you there, Emily? I've seen your picture. I'm not sure if you're actually on it. Nope. No comment. Anyone else? We have time for one more question or one more comment. No. No more takers? Okay, well, Michael, we're pretty much out of time in any case. Thank you very, very much for that really interesting insight. I'm sure it's been of tremendous value to all the participants. We must do it again down the road, because if the lockdown hasn't finished, obviously these issues will be even more sort of pertinent, and I'm sure there'll be more people who want to dial into it. For the audience, I'd just like to remind you the conference series continues next week, where we'll have another update from the British ambassador. She'll be accompanied by the head of DIT in Moscow, Trevor Lewis, and we'll also be joined by the Trade Commissioner for Russia and the wider region, actually based in Istanbul, Ms. Judith Slater. So that will be another great webinar. So please join us for there. And in the meantime, keep safe, remain isolated if you have to, and look forward to speaking to you next week. Michael, thanks very much. All the best in the dacha, and speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.